Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhetamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritav Vande Bhagavantav Punah Punah. There may be some students who did not come last class, and therefore for them I am making an announcement. The classes will continue till 14th. Then afterwards they will be suspended. There will be no classes till 28th of June. 28th of June, I will resume the online classes. That's all. Please don't get bored with my announcement again and again. We are doing Kathopanishad today, and Kathopanishad, third Valli, first chapter, third Valli, fifth verse we were doing. And here, Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Buddhim Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Shariram Rathamevatu, Buddhim tu Sarathim Vidhi, Manah Pragrahamevacha. See here, there is a simile, very beautiful simile. The body is like the chariot, and the Atma, the one who has taken himself to be the body, that Atma, which is all pervasive, which is infinite, which has no parallel, which is Nirvishesham, that Atma happens to be Ratha Swami. Ratha Swami means the king. This body is the chariot, and the Atma is the owner of the chariot, and the intellect, the buddhi means the discerning capacity is the Sarathi, the chariot here is likened to a chariot here. Mind is likened to a pragraha, means the reins. The senses are likened to the horses, and the objects are likened to the paths for the horses to move. This is what is called the simile. The simile has to be understood. The body is likened to the chariot. The Atma is likened to the king. And the discerning capacity, the intellect is called the discerning capacity. What is what? The discerning capacity is likened to Sarathi. The mind is likened, the choice is likened to the reins, and the senses are likened to the horses, and the objects are likened to, the paths leading to. And the goal is not said here in this simile, but I am saying the goal to be reached is one's own existence, the truth, the infinite. That is the goal to be reached. And just as the king, his own palace is the goal, and that palace here, in the case of human beings, it is himself, his own existence. Atma has to reach itself with the help of the Sarathi, with the help of the horses. He has to live his life that leads to himself. Yastu avijnanavan bhavati. The discerning capacity is the one who doesn't discern between the body and the self. That person, yastu avijnanavan bhavati, ayuktena manasasala. If a person doesn't discern properly, then his choice also would be ayuktena manasasala. It will be a wrong choice. He will be making all the time wrong choices. Tasya indriyani avashyani. His senses, his impulses also will be very difficult to control. His senses will be difficult to control. His desires will be difficult to control. His senses will be difficult to control. Dushta ashvaha iva sarade, like even a charioteer's bad horses. untrained, undisciplined, restive horses, bad horses. Yastu Vijnanavan Bhavati, page verse number 6G. Yastu Vijnanavan Bhavati. Vijnanavan means the one who has the discerning capacity. What is what? Before you choose, what is what means what is relevant to your happiness and what is not relevant to your happiness. What is relevant to your peace now and later. That is what is called discerning. What is relevant to your peace now and later. When you feed a hungry man, even if you choose to be unhappy, you can't be unhappy. Even if you choose to be unhappy, you can't be unhappy when you feed a hungry man. A hungry man choiceless. When you feed a hungry man, that good deed always choicelessly makes you happy. Choicelessly makes you peaceful. And whenever you remember it, that memory also makes you happy. And therefore, a good deed is that which makes you peaceful now and whenever you remember it, later also. Let me call it as now and later, always. It never makes you unhappy. It never makes you repent. That is called a discerning. Just as a right value is discerned from the wrong values, compassion is discerned from cruelty, in the same manner, the self has to be, existence has to be discerned from deha place. That is satya mithya viveka. Discerning the truth from the form is what is called satya mithya viveka. And discerning dharma from adharma is discerning from what is relevant to your present happiness, present peace, and what is not relevant. Relevant and the relevance and the non-relevance. What is relevant and what is not relevant. Sometimes certain pleasures give you happiness now, but later on they make you unhappy. And that's not really the sattvic, that is not considered to be a desirable thing to do. Self-control makes you happy now and later. And therefore, self-control is desirable. You may desire, but it should be desirable. What you desire has to be desirable. The desirable. Therefore, yastu vijnanavan bhavati, the one who discerns between the good and bad and the truth and the untruth. Vijnanavan bhavati, yuktena manasa sada. And then he is endowed with the right mind, the right choice. Tasya indriyani vashyani. His impulses are controllable. Sadashvayava sarate, like even the good horses of a chariot here. Like the good horses, disciplined horses, non-restive horses. The kind of horses which are ready to draw the chariot. Which are ready to draw the chariot towards the goal. They are called Sadashvayava sarate. Like the sarate is good horses, you can control your impulses, you can control your desires when you make the right choice. And when you not only make the right choice, you follow the right choice. You implement the right choice. And dharma has to be implemented, please. Even the Vedanta has to be understood, dharma has to be implemented. Compassion has to be implemented. Dharma needs to be implemented, but can we implement Vedanta? Vedanta is something to be understood. Tattvamasi Mahavakya is something to be understood. You don't implement it. It's not a vidhi. It's not an injunction. It's not an injunction. Good can be implemented. The good can be implemented. The truth cannot be implemented. You can only understand the truth to be yourself. It is not implemented. The right values can be implemented, yes. So Sadashvayava sarate. And therefore, when a person has the right intellect and right mind and the right self-controls, his senses, everything will be controllable for him, like the good horses of a chariot. Yastu avijnanavan bhavati, verse number 7. Yastu avijnanavan bhavati, The one who has no discerning capacity, amanaskaha sada, amanaskaha. Amanaskaha means a person who has no, is a mindless person. He has no proper choice. He has no proper choice. Sada ashuchihi. And a person who is always improper. He is improper. He is cruel. He is hurtful. He is dishonest, untruthful, etc. Sada ashuchihi. It should be read as sada ashuchihi, not sada shuchihi. Sada ashuchihi, in keeping with what is said before. He is yastu avijnanavan bhavati, amanaskaha sada ashuchihi, nasa tatpadam apnoti. He can never know the truth. Nasa tatpadam apnoti. He can never gain to that abode. He can never know himself. He cannot come back to himself. In order to come back to himself, he must have self-control. He must be himself. Nasa tatpadam apnoti. Sagam saram cha adhigacchati. And he reaches only samsara. He doesn't have to reach samsara. He is already in samsara. He remains in samsara. That is what it should mean. He remains in samsara. He remains in struggle. He remains in scattered life. He remains in struggling life. He remains unhappy. He remains disturbed. He remains in samsara. Who is that? Yastu avijnana banavati, the one who has no discerning capacity. Everybody has a discerning capacity, but you have to make a will to discern, because all that needs to be discerned has to be discerned. Discerning means what is relevant to my happiness. In fact, understanding the self has to be discerned from the objects. The truth has to be discerned from the untruth. And because the understanding the truth makes me peaceful now and later. Goodness also makes me relatively peaceful now and later. What is relatively peaceful? Goodness makes me relatively peaceful now and later. Whereas the discerning between the truth and the untruth makes me peaceful now and later forever. It's not relatively peaceful, but absolutely peaceful. And therefore, a person who doesn't have that discerning capacity, doesn't discern, doesn't require, doesn't will to discern, he doesn't use his will for discerning. Amanaskaha, and he chooses all wrong things. Sada ashuchihi, he is ever impure. Such a person, nasa tatpadam apnoti, he cannot achieve the truth. Tat padam. The truth is also called padam. Padam means what can be known. Padam means what can be known, what can be gained. Padyate iti padam. Padyate means it can be only recognized. Padyate. Padam means it is called an abode. Because it's not an abode inside the creation. It is the abode of the creation. It is the abode of the universe, the abode of the senses, the abode of the thoughts, the abode of all the entire samsara. It accommodates samsara, but it's not qualified by samsara. The rope accommodates a snake, but is not qualified by the snake. In the same manner, truth accommodates the entire Jagat, but it's not qualified by the Jagat. All forms are within Anubhava, sounds are within Anubhava, but they don't qualify the Anubhava. Neither Anubhava qualifies them. There is no noun-adjective relationship between awareness and the things, objects. Between awareness and thoughts, there is no noun-adjective relationship, please. What I'm saying has to be understood properly. It is something that is to be, Vedanta is something to be understood. You understand, you are highly educated people, but the highly educated people must give their attention to Vedanta. Even before you reject Vedanta, you must know what are you rejecting, please. You cannot be rejecting your own existence and your own happiness. You can't reject. You can never reject. You can reject. You can't reject fullness. You can't reject eternity, please. Because even if the eternity is rejected, then with what knowledge, with what experience do you know the non-eternal? The one who is aware of the non-eternal is eternal, please. You can't reject it. You can't deny it. What is, if you know the change, the one who knows the change is changeless. Therefore, the changeless is evident. The eternal is evident. The one who knows the time, the one who is aware of time is timeless. And therefore, the timeless is also evident. The eternal is evident. The one who is aware of the limited is unlimited. The conscious being is unlimited. Therefore, the truth is evident. And what is evident, you cannot deny. You cannot reject it. And therefore, Vedanta cannot be rejected. It needs to be understood, please. Nasatatpadam apnoti, sagam saram chadigachati. A person remains in samsara. Why? Because he doesn't use his will to discern between what is relevant to his peace and what is irrelevant to his peace. Yastu vijnanavan bhavati, verse number 8. Yastu vijnanavan bhavati, the one who makes the will to discern. Discerning capacity everybody has. Everybody is a Vidwanji. Everybody has the same faculties. Everybody has the same understanding capacity. But the faculty is there, but you will understand only when you use your will to understand. Yastu vijnanavan bhavati. The one who uses his discerning intellect to discern between what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, and what is truth and what is untruth. Honesty is goodness. Dishonesty is badness. So you discern between good and bad. Honesty is relevant to your peace now and later. Dishonesty is not relevant to your peace now and later. And in the same manner that, and therefore, discerning between the good and bad gives you relative peace now and later, whereas discerning between truth and the untruth gives you absolute peace now and later. Now and later is the timeless peace and the timeless fullness. Yastu vijnanavan bhavati samanaskaha. When a person uses his will to discern between good and bad and between the truth and the untruth, between the self and the non-self, and he becomes his samanaskaha, he has a good choice. Sada shuchihi, and he is always pure. His mind is pure. Because when the mind is pure, the mind is peaceful also, please. And the mind is pure means you have to discern. You have to use your intelligence to discern between what is relevant to my peace now and later. As I told you, what is choicelessly relevant to my peace now and later. When you feed a hungry man, it makes you choicelessly peaceful. And whenever you remember it, it makes you choicelessly peaceful. That is a good deed. Feeding a hungry man is a good deed. Similarly, every good deed choicelessly makes you peaceful. Every good deed choicelessly makes you peaceful. And that understanding the good from the bad is what is called discerning, empirical discerning. And the fundamental discerning is discerning between consciousness and matter. And that gives you absolute serenity now and later. Now and later means timelessness here. I don't mean now in time and later in time. I don't mean now and later, I mean only the very time is you discern between the time and the timelessness. And you disprove the time, you disprove the forms. And such a person, samanaskaha sada shuchi, satu tatpadam apnoti, he can reach that abode. Abode means the one who accommodates the entire universe, unqualified by the universe. Between God and the universe, there is no noun-adjective relationship, please. Between God and anything for that matter, whatever man sees, there is no noun-adjective relationship. From God point of view, God alone is. From man point of view, there is God and man. And then explanation for man is is created by God. The universe is a creation, is made of God. Created, it is not as an event, it is perceived. And then we are perceiving everything. We are perceiving the forms and sounds and tastes and touches and smells, and we remember also everything we are perceiving in the truth. And that is why we say it is made of the truth. That's why we say it is created by the truth. It is a prakriya. The Shruti uses the prakriya, does the kalpana of the prakriya methodology. Satu tatpadam apnoti yasmad bhuyo na jayate. Having reached that abode, having recognized that abode, he is not born again. That means he does not come into samsara again. Ignorance can only come, it cannot come, it can only go away. The error corrected is corrected for good. The error is corrected for good. And therefore, the self error that I am the form, if it is corrected, it is always corrected for good. And therefore, correction of that error is what is called freedom from the rebirth. When you come to know that the snake is rope, then it is corrected. And the rope is not seen again as the snake. And even if you see it as a snake, you will again come back to the knowledge, oh my God, I made another mistake. It is not snake, it is rope only. In that manner, here also, whenever you think that you are the form, you will also understand that you are not the form. Therefore, the error is corrected for good. That correction of the error is what is called freedom from rebirth, please. The continuity of the error is what is called rebirth. It cannot continue only for a few days. It can continue forever, please. It can continue it can continue for a long time until it is corrected. Any self error, the timeless self error, please. It is not an error, self error. Presupposing the self error is time, and therefore it cannot be traced to any time, place. That's why I say it is a timeless error about the timeless truth. I am Deha is a timeless error about the timeless truth. The error by dint of its being an error, it can be corrected. Truth by dint of its being truth, it cannot be corrected, it cannot be denied, it cannot be disproved, it cannot be resolved also. It is yourself. The truth is yourself. Sartu tatpadam apnoti yasmad bhuyo na jayate. That tu is meant to discern between the previous person who can't reach the abode. A wrong person is discerned from the right person by the Shruti. It is discerned because the wrong person is the one who cannot reach that abode, who cannot recognize himself. Now he thinks that the body is his abode, but now in the actuality he is the abode of the entire Jagat. He is the abode of the waking state. He is the abode of the dream state. He is the abode of the absence, the thought of the absence of the waking and the dream, called the deep sleep state. And therefore, and that is why it is called Padam, abode. Abode means that which accommodates everything without being qualified by it. This is the most difficult thing to understand. It accommodates everything. It is comprehensive of everything as itself, but unqualified by anything. There is no noun-adjective relationship between God and the world. There is no noun-adjective relationship between your being and your body, and between your being and any object that you perceive. Everything that you objectify is an error about the unobjectifiable. The unobjectifiable being that you are, it is that unobjectifiable being that you are is indeed misconceived as forms, as the seer of the forms. And therefore, Vijnana, the next verse, the 9th verse, Vijnana Sarathir Jastu. If a person lives with Vijnana Sarathir Jastu. Sarathi means charioteer. If you have a charioteer who is in the form of a right Vijnana, a discerning capacity, Vijnana Sarathir Jastu, Manah Pragrahvan Naraha, and a controlling choice, controlling mind. Pragraha means controller, the reins. If a person has the reins of the mind, if a person has the Sarad, the charioteer of the intelligence, the chariot intelligence like the charioteer, if a person has the charioteer of intelligence and the reins of the mind, the choice, so advanaha paramapnoti, he can really understand what is behind the perception. What is behind the perception is his own existence. What is behind the eye, behind this, what is behind this space is not another spatial thing. What is behind the space is the very seer of the space. What is behind the air is himself, the seer himself. What is behind the creation is the very subject, the conscious being. And therefore, don't try to peep into what is behind the universe in terms of spatial existence. There is no space behind the space. The consciousness is behind space. In fact, the space is not outside. The space is seen within oneself in consciousness. And the five elements are perceived within the consciousness. And therefore, you don't have to peep behind the universe in terms of matter. There is no matter behind matter. There is no matter. Matter is made of consciousness. Consciousness is not made of matter, please, as many people think. Consciousness is not made. In fact, that which witnesses all makings is not made. All creations, that which is aware of all human creations, human makings, human thoughts, human emotions, it's not an emotion. That which is aware of all thoughts is not a thought. That which is aware of all emotions is not a given emotion. And that which is aware of all the objects is not a given object. Saha advanaha paramapnoti. Advanaha means the state, the waking state. From the waking state only, you come to know that within the waking state only you know that this is waking state, and that is the dream state. Only in relation to the waking state, the dream becomes the dream. Only in relation to the waking state, the deep sleep state is called the deep sleep state. Thus, you can't advanaha paramapnoti. You can transcend, you can understand what is behind the waking state. Paramapnoti. Param means the beyond the waking state, the beyond of the waking state, the beyond of the wave is water. Between the beyond and the immanent, the universe, what is available to power perception. Between yourself and the universe, there is no spatial distance, please. There is oneness. Please, there is no spatial distance between consciousness and matter. There is no spatial distance between you and the form. Between the formless and the form, they are not parallel to each other. Between the silence and the sound, they are not parallel to each other. Just as all sounds are made within silence, they are born in silence, sustained in silence, go back into silence. In the same manner, the infinite and the finite cannot be parallel to each other. The finite is within the infinite. The matter is within consciousness. And therefore, tadvana paramapnoti. A person can understand what is beyond this waking state. Beyond the waking state means, like saying, the water is beyond the wave. Don't think beyond means spatially beyond. It's not a spatial, there is no spatial distance between the wave and water. In the same manner, between the fullness and the limitation, there is no spatial distance, please. The one who is aware of the limitation is fullness, please. The one who is aware of the limitation is fullness. The one who is aware of time is timeless. The one who is aware of the noise is silent. The one who is aware of the sound is silent. The one who is aware of the form is formless. Between the formless and the form, there is no noun-adjective relationship. Neither form qualifies the formless, nor the formlessness qualifies the form. And therefore one is the truth, the other is the error. The one is the Satyam, the other is the Mithya. This is the Vedanta that is talking about. Please you can listen to it. Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padam. That abode is what is called Vishnu Padam. Tad Vishnoho Paramam Padam. Paramam means timeless. Padam means abode. The timeless abode of Vishnu. Vishnu is Vishnu. Etymologically, Vishnu means Vyapanashila. Vyapanashila means all pervasive. All pervasive means the infinite being. And the same truth, the Nirvisesham, as the source is called Brahma, as the sustainer is called Vishnu, as the resolver is called Shiva. They are not three parallel gods, please. They are the same thing. The same truth as the source, as the source it is called Brahma, as the sustainer, as the Sthiti Karanam, as the Sthiti Sthanam, as the sustainer is called Vishnu, Vyapanashila, and as the resolving point is called Shiva. Shiva literally means peace, and Vishnu literally means the infinite being, and Brahma means also the infinite. The source is called the infinite. The same infinite being, you can't have three infinites, G. The same infinite is worshipped as the source, as Brahma, as the sustainer, as Vishnu, as the resolver, as the Shiva. In the same manner, the same truth is there in the form of all the jivas. The same truth is there in the form of all the jivas. And no jiva is parallel to Bhagavan, God. We are not parallels to Bhagavan. We are not a competitors to Bhagavan, because you can never be a parallel to infinite. You can never be parallel to serenity. You make noise, all right. Your noise making tendency is not parallel to serenity. It is within this serenity you make noise. All noise is within the realm of serenity, please. This has to be understood very clearly. Can the noise exist outside serenity? Can the noise exist outside silence? This you have to understand very clearly, please. Paramapnoti tad Vishnoho paramam padam. And then in the next verse, it is said, in the 10th verse, it is said, see, the limited things can be, there is a grammar book called Wren and Martin. And in that Wren and Martin, we were all told the objects can be compared. Tall, taller, tallest. Big, bigger, biggest. Small, smaller, smallest. In this manner, weigh heavy, heavier, heaviest. In this manner, there is a comparison. But you can't really make a comparison between wave and wave. Wave and wave can be compared as forms. But if you take into account the source of the wave, called water, then there is no comparison, please. No object can be compared to another object spiritually. Why? Because every object's truth is the same. Fundamentally, every form is, you can't even make a comparison between one form and another form. If you take into account, into consideration their source, between wave and bubble also you can't compare, because bubble as a form can be compared to the wave. Bubble as water cannot be compared to the wave, because both are the same water. Both are water. In the same manner, one sound can be compared to another sound. But if you take them, both of them are made of silence, then there is no comparison. And thus, only if you exclude the source, then you can compare, then comparison is valid. If you don't really, if you include the source, the material with which the forms are made, the sounds are made, the tastes are made, all perceptions are made, if you take into account the material, the source, then the comparison is not valid. Comparison is valid only as a form and form comparison. Form and form can be compared. Sound and sound can be compared. Taste can be compared. Touch can be compared. Smell can be compared. Every memory can be compared. Every one thought can be compared to another thought. If we don't take into account the source, the material, if you really become spiritual in nature, that means if you take into account the source also, then no comparison is valid place. I say Indians and Americans can be compared. Americans are taller, Indians are shorter. In this, Americans are richer, Indians are poorer. In this manner, you can make some comparison. But once you take into account the Indians are Tatvamasi, Indians are Brahman, and Americans also are the same Brahman, the same infinite. As if you look at them as the true fundamental vision, if you have the fundamental vision, the very fundamental vision of them, then with the fundamental vision on, then you can't make any comparison. It is only one place. Similarly, Rama and Ravana as manifest can be compared. Rama and Ravana as two individuals can be compared. But Rama and Ravana in the deep sleep state, and when they leave their forms, then you can't make any comparison. And therefore, when is comparison valid and when is comparison not valid must be understood correctly. Indriyebhyaha parahyarthaha. It is said. Other paraha means it is something greater. This is a comparison. Indriyebhyaha parahi arthaha. Arthaha means perceptions, the objects. These objects are greater than the senses, because the senses are meant for objects. Even though Shankaracharya ji, the Bhashkara, gives another meaning, arthaha means as the subtle sukshma pancha mahabhutas, with which they are made, the senses are made. But then that is unevident. So we have to, all these comparisons must be made only between the evident and evident. Between the evident and evident alone, evident form and evident form, there can be comparison. Between the evident form and the evident formless, also there is no comparison, because between the comparison between the evident and evident alone, among the evidence, the comparison between the evident form and the evident form is valid, and the comparison between the evident form and the evident formless is also not valid, And therefore now you understand when is it valid, when is it not valid. Fundamentally, no comparison is valid. If you have the fundamental vision, spiritual vision, going by spirituality, no comparison is possible. Going by empiricality, comparisons are possible. Between form and form you can compare. Sound and sound you can compare. And then the world is thriving on these comparisons. It says every person comes and says, my product is better than every other product, he says. It's comparison, what else it is? All advertisements are based upon comparisons. These comparisons, my ointment is much better than every other ointment. My toothpaste is better than every other toothpaste. And this thing is better than, my product is better than every other product. These are all comparisons. It's all empirical. If you have the fundamental vision, spiritual vision, the form of every form is made of the same truth. Every sound is made of the same truth. And therefore, there is no comparison possible. And therefore, indriyebhyaha parahyarthaha, I'm taking into account the evident one. The unevident we are not really. We don't have to infer anything. Arthaha should be taken as perceptions. Perceptions are greater than the senses. Arthaha, because the objects, they look like objects of perception, but actually they are perceptions. Their experience. Even though they look like objects of anubhava, but they are really anubhava alone. Anubhava rupa atmas. Anubhava rupas, all vishayas are nothing but anubhava, or perceptions. They are non-separate from anubhava. They are non-separate from anubhava swarupam. in this manner. Indriyebhya parahyartaha, arthebhyascha param manaha. And from the perception, in comparison to the perceptions, the choice is greater. You have to have the perceptions in order to make the choice. You have to have the perceptions with a sense of reality to make a choice. In order to make a say, this I like, that I like. Likes and dislikes are based upon what are my perceptions. My perceptions with a sense of reality and my adhyasa. And I start thinking, maybe this is better, that is better. In this manner, I think, and then I go about liking and disliking. Manasastu parabuddhi, intelligence, discerning capacity is greater than the choice. Because in order to choose also, I must discern what is what. This is right. Before I select, I must have the knowledge what is what. And therefore, manasastu para buddhi. Buddhir atma mahan paraha. I can have all these faculties only when I have atma. Atma means when I have the sense of individuality. That is called atma. Here, atma means jivatma. Mahan jivatma. Because it is universal. The sense of individuality is universal, and therefore it is Mahanatma. This Mahanatma, Mahanatma means the sense of individuality. Unless I have the sense of individuality, unless I have the sense of identification with the form, then I can't have any faculty. All faculties presuppose the sense of individual, sense of embodiment. Minus the sense of embodiment, I can't have any faculty. Buddhir Atma Mahan Paraha. This Atma means individuality. This individuality is indeed very essential for me to have. So the sense of individuality is greater than the mind and the intellect. Because the sense of individuality is greater than any faculty, please. Perception is greater than the senses, and mind is greater than the perception, and the intellect is greater than the mind. You can understand this comparison only, but they are all to be compared as themselves, as faculties, faculties as non-separate from awareness. Then become there. This comparison is invalid. Comparison is valid only when you exclude the spiritual nature of the faculties. Their ananyatvam with the truth. If you exclude, then the comparison is valid. If you include that, then the comparison is not valid. So when is comparison valid? Comparison is valid only when I exclude the truth from them. Then forms as forms can be compared. Sounds as sounds can be compared. But objects as objects can be compared. Faculties as faculties can be compared. But all faculties as non-separate from awareness cannot be compared because they're all the same awareness. And therefore, manasastu parabuddhi, buddhir atma mahan paraha. All faculties exist only presupposing the sense of individuality. And therefore, that sense of individuality is considered to be mahanatma. This Mahanatma, Mahan means it is Mahanatma because it is the unlimited self taken as confined to the form. That is called sense of individuality. Minus the sense of individuality, no faculty is possible. Minus the fundamental error, the result of an error, the faculties are not possible. And therefore, faculties greater than faculties is the sense of individuality. And what is greater than the sense of individuality? That is going to be said in the next verse. And that verse we will see. Mahata param avyaktam, avyaktat purusha paraha, purusha naparam kinchit, sa kashta sa paragati. This we will see in the next class, please. This is a Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the classes will continue till 14th of this month, and afterwards there will be no classes. and we will restart the online classes only on June 28th. And Ramana Kendra, as far as Ramana Kendra is concerned, we will see the situation, we will study the situation at that time, this COVID situation, and then we will see it. We'll decide it. And in the meantime, please look after yourself. Thank you very much. And I will be leaving for Uttarakashi on 18th. Thank you very much.